Hello, welcome to ITV News Central. On the programme tonight, business as usual, or is it? As uncertainty over the future of HS2 continues, we hear from one community where work is still underway.
Residents who've given up beautiful homes and can't have them back, and the mental stress that everybody has suffered as a result of knowing that this was coming through our rural community, you can't put a price on that.
Well, the Prime Minister held an emergency cabinet meeting today, but as of now, there's still no confirmation of the project's future.
These are projects that cost everyone watching, taxpayers, tens of billions of pounds. It's right that we're careful about that.
Good evening. Uncertainty continues to loom over the future of high-speed 2 rail beyond Birmingham. The Prime Minister has today insisted he will not be rushed into making a premature decision.
Well, in a moment, we'll cross live to our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie, who's at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester for the latest from there. But first, Kieran Fitzpatrick has been to see how all of this speculation is affecting one community in Staffordshire, where HS2 building work is still, for now, underway.
Diggers are still very much in the ground here at this HS2 site near Swinnerton in Staffordshire. Despite the uncertainty of whether this excavation will ever be needed for residents, the impact on the landscape and their lives is clear. Steve Colclough and his wife decided to stay in Whitmore, not far from here, rather than sell up and move on.
You have to make a decision. You either, if you weren't under a compulsory purchase order on your property, you know it's going to be an incredible blight on the area. So you have to make a decision. Do I sell up and get out of here, or do you stay and just see it through? Residents who've given up beautiful homes and can't have them back, and the mental stress that everybody has suffered as a result of knowing that this was coming through our rural community, you can't put a price on that.
Continually on our programmes throughout the last decade, politician after politician has backed the project, despite spiralling costs, environmental damage and change to rural communities.
Finally, making a rapid connection from the West Midlands to the Northern Powerhouse.
Projections show that this West Coast Railway will be full by 2022.
The government is committed to delivering all the plans that it's announced with rail, but as well as these very large rail schemes, which are of course important, what I'm also keen to do is make sure that the government invests in local transportation.
What we've seen over the last couple of weeks is an absolute farce. Basically, Rishi Sunak cannot face the obvious truth that his predecessors have been conned by the construction industry, who just said, oh, we can build this thing, it'll be no problem whatsoever, and the costs have just keep going up. The environmental damage is so high, the cost for communities is so high, it is time to say no.
And here in Whitmore Heath, compulsory purchases are the norm. 50 on this small stretch of the country lanes were purchased by HS2, as a tunnel would go underneath.
So we're here in Whitmore Heath. This house is boarded up. Tell me more about it. Why is this happening?
That was actually taken off a householder. They had to move away, and the house standing there now completely empty. That's taxpayers' money sitting there now doing nothing.
Why did they do that?
They did it because the householder complained that they're going to have a tunnel underneath them, that there's a chance of subsidence, a real chance of subsidence, which everybody around here could understand. And they said, right, look, we've got to move. There's no other way around this. We can't be left standing with the possibility of subsidence on properties like this.
Well, there's another one there locked up as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is another one there, and others down there as well. That's taxpayers' money standing there, right there, doing nothing.
Uncertainty remains the overarching feeling for the people that call this part of Staffordshire home. Their message to Tory politicians 50 miles away north in Manchester: make up your mind, save or shelve. Kieran Fitzpatrick, ITV News, North Staffordshire.
Well, in a statement, HS2 Limited told ITV News Central a range of property compensation schemes are available for people living close to the railway, and wherever possible, we rent out properties that aren't immediately required for construction in order to reduce the cost to the taxpayer.
So, the man with the big yes-no decision to make on what happens to HS2 next is the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. And he is currently in Manchester at his party's annual conference.
Well, let's cross live now to our political correspondent, Alison Mackenzie. Alison, the Prime Minister has been asked a lot about HS2 today, of course. What has he had to say?
Well, this may sound a bit harsh, but he's very good at saying a lot but not revealing the actual decision. What will he say about whether the HS2 beyond Birmingham to Manchester will go ahead? He's talking a lot about plans for connectivity between east and west, about plans for potholes and road projects, reminding us of the spiralling costs of all of the HS2 project, but he hasn't said yet what we believe he's decided. We're not yet hearing it. These are his words tonight.
I know there's a lot of speculation on this, but I just want to reassure people. I approach this the same way I approach everything. Thoughtfully, responsibly, carefully, across the detail to make the right long-term decision for the country. You talked about the cost. Obviously, look, these are projects that cost everyone watching, taxpayers, tens of billions of pounds. It's right that we're careful about that. People would expect that from me.
We heard from Kieran's report that this debate has been raging for decades with lots of concern, disruption. And of course, we've been reporting on it with all those politicians making decisions over the years. Well, a key player in those early days was George Osborne, now the former Chancellor. We asked him, given the promises that various successive governments have made, his reaction tonight to news of a possible expected cancellation.
I think it'd be a great tragedy, as I've said, to cancel HS2. It's the biggest levelling up project the country has got. And in the end, if you want to make long-term decisions, and I fully support Rishi Sunak in wanting to make those long-term decisions, that includes huge investments in infrastructure like HS2. So I hope it's not too late and the Cabinet sticks with the policy of previous Conservative and Labour administrations and goes ahead with this project.
Now, Andy Street, the Conservative Metro Mayor for the West Midlands, was literally a few feet away from me here last night, furious at the suggestion it should all be cancelled. He says he wants to bring in the private sector. That's for the future. But what about the business concerns, those development plans now, tonight, knowing again that it may all be cancelled? We spoke to the Chamber of Commerce chief there, Henrietta Brearley.
HS2 has been a major catalyst for health and regeneration in the city. A lot of the good fundamentals about why it's a great place to invest remain strong. But in terms of investor confidence internationally in the UK as a place to do business, rolling back at this stage on something as fundamental as the biggest investment in infrastructure for a generation would be deeply concerning and undermine that trust that the UK has a stable environment in terms of policy, in terms of investment decisions on infrastructure.
Now, Alison, this is a topic which sparks strong views on both sides, and we have heard some of them already. Now, I understand you've been speaking to a Midlands MP who is in favour of scrapping the next phase to Manchester. Is that right?
Absolutely. A lot focuses on that route from Birmingham up to Crewe and then Manchester. And of course, that goes right through areas such as Staffordshire. Jack Brereton, one of the MPs there, says he's been listening to local people for years as well, concerned that priority for HS2 going up to Crewe, the pressure on Crewe, means the cancellation of many rail services for the area that serves our area. So he explained to me in detail what he meant by that and why he doesn't want it to go ahead.
HS2 cuts through, as proposed with Phase 2, would cut through Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent and would actually cause huge detriment to those services. The latest service specification that HS2 themselves produced would have seen services reduced at many of those stations up and down the line in the North Midlands, in Stoke-on-Trent, Stafford, up to Crewe itself would have lost services. And the only stations that would have actually seen a gain in services north of Birmingham would have been Runcorn and Liverpool.
So there we have Conservative voices here on both sides, some saying, a lot saying for, many saying against, and that's the view of the Labour leader of Birmingham City Council, John Cotton, tonight, saying it would be a disaster if HS2 is to be cancelled beyond Birmingham. They want it all to link up. That is the Labour plan as well. Of course, Rishi Sunak gets to his feet tomorrow, his keynote speech, but I don't think he wants to use his keynote speech here in Manchester to say he's going to cancel the link to Manchester. He might couch it in other ways about production and future levelling up plans for the west-east connection.
Well, the saga rumbles on. Alison, for now, thank you.
Well, earlier I spoke to Lord Berkeley, a vocal critic of HS2. He's previously said the entire project should be scrapped. With work now well underway and a huge amount of money already spent, I began by asking him if he still feels the same way.
Well, I think a lot of it needs to be scrapped because although I've been following it for a number of years, the costs, as I keep on telling people, have continued to increase. My present calculation is that it's going to cost over £180 billion.
Are you surprised by the timing? Because you've been saying HS2 is too expensive for many years now. We've got an election probably in the next 12 months. We're a long way down the road of HS2, huge money spent, people's lives turned upside down. Are you surprised that now is the time where they're deciding they might pull the plug, at least on part of it?
It's not a particularly good time, but let's just take a step back. What is being talked about at the moment is to pull the plug between Birmingham and Manchester, as I understand it. There's no construction works really started on the ground there. When you get further south, the construction has started, as we all know, between Birmingham and Old Oak Common. And I think there's an argument for what I would call repurposing that into a slower speed railway, which would provide extra capacity and get people better service between Birmingham and London.
Those who are in the Midlands obviously will often take Avanti trains down to London. They've had a lot of problems, but have recently been given a new contract. Do you think they deserve that?
Well, I think the new contract is a very interesting way of rewarding a company where its performance has been very bad. But again, if you live in Birmingham, at least you've got the Chiltern line, which is a bit better. So having two lines anyway, and you've got the London Midland as well. So having a bit of competition actually will help people when they're completely stymied because of one thing's gone wrong.